because we know that they're going to be great judges and we can use them in the next round.
Okay.
Okay?
Beautiful, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's why we're recording this. For people who are asleep, you can watch it later.
And for the contestants that are taking part, if the contest does need a few more people and you're not in that contest and you've gone to another area to see how things are doing, if they need a ballot counter, if they need a timer, you can help out with that. It's allowed. We'd rather have people who aren't in the contest at all, but we're counting on you to be ethical Toastmasters and be as non-biased as possible. And as timer and ballot counters, you're not the only one. You have a backup system. Therefore, it's a whole lot harder to even let those biases creep in as they could as a judge. Now, Toastmasters International Guide does allow for judges from the same clubs at area and division and district. However, what they didn't say is you have to have it equally represented. So if you have 6 clubs and you need 7 judges, in theory, that would mean you'd have to have 2 from every club to make it completely even to be 7 or more judges. Now, you could still take 1 person from outside the area. Okay, but you still need to have 6. What if that 1 judge doesn't show up? It's biased now because you've got 5 clubs with judges from their club and 1 person who's representing without their judge. That's not fair. Therefore, we do our best within our division to make sure that our area contest and our division contest, for as much as possible, the judges are selected from a pool of people who are not in the club that the contestant is representing that club. The contestant is representing the club. The reason I put that in is because when I compete, Deb's job would have been impossible if she had to go by every club, getting enough judges from the clubs that I'm in. It has to be which club I'm representing. Because being in 4 clubs across 4 areas, I wind up making it very difficult to have a judge that doesn't know me. All right, pick from people who are not in the clubs that I'm representing. If I'm representing top class, that means top class can't have a judge in the contest. But I'm in Speak Leaders, and we've got members from all over. Speak Leaders can technically have it, but we have to make sure that when we're briefing the judges, make sure you're not showing any bias because your member is not representing your club. They're representing a different club. Therefore, it won't help your club's bragging rights if this person wins because they're not winning for your club. I had briefing on there. Briefing is done by the chief judge. They go over your role once again as a judge, reminding you of how to fill out your ballot, how to be non-biased, and we'll go through a little bit of what a chief judge would be telling you with that. The backside of your ballot forms is a judge's guide. Once again, giving you more information about how to be a good judge. Because we always want to remind them, we always want to make sure we're on top of things. And we know Toastmaster loves documentation and giving us lots of information, lots of different ways to help reinforce. So you get it verbally, you get it written on your sign-off form, and you get it written on the back of your ballot. At least as long as the person printing out the forms prints out double-sided. Sometimes you wind up with 2 pages. The front part is the actual balloting, and it's laid out in 2 parts. The top portion helps you pick a winner, but that top portion does not go to the ballot counter. So why all these different grids and numbers and places to fill in and all these different things? It's a guide. It is purely a worksheet guide. The top half is for you to use as a guideline. You go through, you put in your numbers, you add them up at the end, and when you get those numbers do not lock you in. Those numbers are a guide. You can then go back to your notes and say, I gave an 82 to one person and an 81 to the other. But that 81, when I look back at my notes, that person who got 81 really resonated with me so much more now that I think about it. That 81 was not completely what I wanted to do. I would have actually rated them higher than the person I gave 82. I'm going to put them ahead. Absolutely fair, absolutely how you should be doing it because it's based on how you felt they did in the criteria. The numbers are your guide. They're not told you to your decision. When you've made your decision, that's where the bottom portion comes in place. If there were 3 or more contestants, you must fill out 3 names, 1 name per line. You can't have a tie for first place. If you have two people with 81, you don't put two names in first place. You have to break that tie in your head, write down a different name for first and second, and you must fill in all three places. Otherwise, the ballot is not considered valid unless there's less than 3 contestants.
Have you ever had a tie, Keith, and how did you break it?
Personally?
Yes.
I have it all the time, and I go with my gut instinct. The first thing, just like when I was doing SAT tests, if I've got it down to 2 answers, I don't spend a lot of time worrying through my mind, which one, which one, which one. I say, that one came to me first, that's the one who gets it. Because as a judge, it's not just you. You're not the only person making the decision. It's a combined process, and it's all added up and weighted. And that way, we know that we work together. And it's good if your numbers don't add up to everybody else's, because each of you bring a different perspective, and you may see something a little different. You may have taken the 30% a little more strongly and said, yeah, that 30% of what they should have done really made a difference to me, and the other person really did do better. Outliers, people who judge slightly different than everybody else, is important, because that helps brings balance. We don't want always to have the exact same judging. It's nice if there's an agreement within the judges, but I think it's better personally that we see a balance, that we see different perspectives, because that shows that it's not just everybody gets an A because everybody answered exactly the same. Everybody sees the world differently, and how we judge the contest is how we interpret what they did, how that person affects us. And it's about how they present, not about their message, but how they present. That's what we're judging on.
No, that's shut. He's just got a big mouth. Sorry. One thing that I do, because I'm kind of a numbers person, and you're probably thinking, well, there's been like 8 contestants. So how am I going to go with my gut? I mean, I have maybe your first one and the 4th one have the same score and they're the best, and you're like, wait a minute, which one did, because you're listening. I'm just a numbers person, so speech development is always the top one you'll see. So sometimes I just go, who has the highest number in speech development? So it's just your own preference on how you want to break your own personal tie, because you're really only scoring them as an individual and not against each other. So it's not about against each other, it's about how did that one person score in each one of these categories.
Now, there's one special ballot that we get one judge to do slightly differently than everybody else, and that's the tiebreaker ballot. The tiebreaker ballot value only comes in if there's a tie. However, there's a whole lot more ties than you might ever imagine, because in a lot of cases, the judges will pick the best 3 or 4 people, and if it's 6, 8 people in a contest, there may be 2 or 3 people at the bottom who did not get a score from the judges. However, those people are still technically available to continue on to the next level as long as they did not go over or under time. Therefore, those people should be properly scored, and that tiebreaker ballot would then come in and say, of the people who were 4th, 5th, 6th, what order did they come in? Because if for some reason 1st, 2nd, and 3rd can't make it to the next contest, who's the 4th place winner that gets to go on?
So nobody's a loser, Shell.
Now, real quick, I'll get right to you, Alice. The tiebreaker ballot is different in that you have a line for every person that you have to fill out at the bottom. You must fill in every name of every contestant in the contest. Doesn't matter if you think they did something wrong in the speech. It doesn't matter if you think they went over time. You don't worry about, as a judge, whether or not there's any reason they would be disqualified for time or content. You always put every name down. Just like for the 3 names on the main ballot, if you're a tiebreaker, you have to put everybody's name down. Alice.
So that particular form is filled out during the contest?
Yep, this is just a special judge. A tiebreaker judge is just like a regular judge, except they have to write some more.
Oh,
yeah. And nobody knows who they are, only the chief judge. And the chief judge is the only one that collects their ballot and kind of holds it, because if it's not needed, it never comes out. So there's a little, just a little bit of a difference where they kind of, it's almost like the big Oscar thing. It's like it stays away unless we absolutely need it, because it's really not necessary unless there's a tie.
You made a good point about time, because judges should not try to time the speakers.
Right.
Or even pay attention to the timing lights if they can see them, because that could create a bias on your judging.
Right. You don't worry about the timing. If the person goes over, that's entirely on the ballot counters and the chief judge to review that information and the chief judge to report on it.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
We had somebody come speak at our club, and the evaluator for that person was kind of going on like, oh, I really like how you dress, I like your lipstick, I like your hair, your dress is really nice. And afterwards she came up to me and she's like, never have I been in Toastmasters where they like evaluated me on how I was dressed. She's like, that was like really kind of creepy or weird. She's like, is that what your club does it? And I was like, I don't know, I've never known someone to judge someone on how they're dressed.
Okay, judging is not the same as evaluating. They're similar, but they're not identical. However, for evaluating within in a club level for a speech, it should be based on how you present, not on your content, not on how you dress. However, a person could give you general feedback on dress just to let you know, but it shouldn't make a difference about the kind of feedback you get. Asta.
I just have an opinion on that, because when I evaluate, if the person is exceptionally dressed, I will let them know their presence commanded attention from me. If you go up there with cut-up jeans and a yucky sweatshirt and your hair disheveled,
and you're not doing a humorous contest.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That actually goes against in my evaluations, because looking at you, it doesn't command my attention to want to look at you. Now, I don't know about nails, hair, makeup, hair, and all that stuff, but I think dress does go into my evaluation.
I would agree that that does add value, but it's a smaller value compared to the other things that we're looking for as speaking, as presenters. And that's
Because
what we're looking
clubs,
for.
you know, we come in from after work, or, you know, a lot of times we can't, so.
I will say,
But if you look
I will
at
say
the,
one thing is that if you are distracted by the clothes and not what the person is saying, then I would put that as a quality. And everybody else, I love Simon Cowell because he always told what it was about. If he started talking about your clothes, you did not do a good job. You got to listen to what they don't say. So if you go on about the clothing, then your message probably didn't ring around like it was supposed to.
I missed your name. Tell me your name.
Peter.
Peter.
And on both judging ballots, there is a physical judging item with a subcategory of appearance. And that category is worth 15 points on the tabletop contest. So yes, appearance can.
Yes, appearance is a portion of the physical. They also talk about how you use the stage. Now, when you're being briefed as a judge, they will talk about speaking area. The speaking area is from that end of the table to that end of the table, from the front of the table to the stage and all the way back to the wall. And a lot of people, when they first hear about that, it's like, that's a constraint, that's a tightness. You don't go outside of it, that's your wall. But what they're really telling you is, that is the area that they can fill. And how well do they fill that space? Now, there are times you will see contestants take a chance by going outside of the speaking area. As long as it doesn't take away from the speech, they're not talking from the back with their back to you, they're still involved in the speech. They're not violating the space, they're going beyond the space. And you as a judge can decide whether or not it added or took away from the speech. But using the space is just about how well did they fill the defined volume, not if they went outside constraints. And you as a judge are not allowed to disqualify anyone for going outside of the space.
it's because how many people stand at the podium the whole time, right?
It can happen, absolutely, and that's not using the space as well. Or they have a tendency to just stay in this tiny little area here, or maybe they're the kind of person who starts out the speech really great over here, and they stay over here the entire time. And that's all they do. They talk to this one side of the audience, and they ignore the people over there. You want to use the space well. Victoria, did you have a question? You're just giving me a comment. Okay, good. The bottom portion, you tear it off. Fold it up, make sure you've signed it. If you don't sign it, it's invalid. And they will throw it away if you're a regular judge. If you're a tiebreaker, they're probably going to pull you out of the contest to make you finish your ballot. We've seen it happen. This is the process. You tear it off, fold it up, hold it up, the ballot counter's gonna come around and get it. It kind of lets people know that you're a judge. That's unluckily part of it. We keep talking about having decoy judges. Maybe one of these days we'll call them decoy judges so that people can't tell who's the real judge and who
That's
isn't.
too funny.
Vicki, I shared a division contest one time, and everybody came in by the ballot. And what we did was we color coded all the ballots, so when you checked in, you either got a blue, red, green, but only the judges got yellow ones.
There you go.
So really, the audience couldn't tell who was a judge.
That's a good
because
idea.
Everybody
I
was
like
filling
that.
out ballots
Wait,
with a folder
they
in
had-
an envelope. And they were able to turn theirs in. And we actually
There we go. I
recorded
love
the
it.
audience's score and the judges. We didn't say the judge's score, but
Yeah.
Take notes, break
We
your
got-
tie. All right,
they
I
got to
covered
see
all
how they
this.
did.
I don't need to read from the slides, I'm telling you all this. Judging categories, we've talked about it. Different categories for each contest. It's a personal guide. The top portion is your work guide. It is your personal guide. You don't tell anybody about it afterwards. If a contestant asks you to tell them you did a great job, and I cannot answer anymore if you do not get into a conversation with the contestant about how you judged. You take that paperwork away from here, from the contest, and you destroy it away from here. You dispose of it away from here, so there's no chance that anybody could see it. We don't want to give anybody the chance to think, okay, well, let me pick through and see how I did. Unluckily, I know people as contestants would love to have more feedback. Have somebody in your audience fill out a CC manual or a different speech manual for you. You can't get the feedback from the judges. You don't get to find out. You only get to find out if you're first, second, and third. Misconceptions. Contestants can use props, visual aids, or music, but we want to make sure in good taste. And you have to make sure that it can be placed on stage and removed in a timely fashion within the time between ballots. You can work with the sergeant-at-arms of the contest to help you with the setup and breakdown of any of your props.
Sometimes the sergeant of arms wants to do it and is not interested in you moving your own props. I ran into that. I had a lot of props in one contest.
Well, there is a reason for that. If you
Yeah,
are,
I'm saying it's wrong, I just say beware that.
well, as a sergeant-at-arms, if you want to make sure your contest is fair and each contestant gets just their time on stage, if they're already standing up there setting up props, they're getting additional time. Therefore, it is better if the sergeant-at-arms and any assistance they need set up the props for you instead.
But I thought you weren't timed until you started talking. Is that true?
You're not timed until you make a gesture or start talking. If I come out on stage and I do this, I've already been speaking for 10 seconds.
I'm saying if you're bringing out a prop though, that doesn't count, does it?
That would not count against your timing. However, the other contestants might say, well, look, they were acting as they were putting their props out and getting more attention before their speech time already started. So it was almost as if they got an extra minute to be presenting to the audience when they were setting up their props.
It could be argued.
Yeah.
And we want to try and make it as fair and non-biased as possible.
Okay.
Disqualifications can only be based on eligibility. Is the person paid? Timing, did they go under or over time? How many people know what the minimum time is for table topics at a contest? 1 minute, 60 seconds. There is no 30-second grace in table topics before. There's still the 30 seconds after. If you go to 2 minutes, 30 seconds, you're good. 2 minutes, 31, disqualified. And at the end of the contest, they will say there was a disqualification for time. They will not say who did. International speech. Anybody guess what the timing is for that? Minimum and maximum.
4:30.
4 minutes, 30 seconds minimum. You don't see your green. You may not think you made enough time, but if you hit 4 minutes, 30 seconds, you are still qualified.
For speech, you said.
In international speech.
Sorry. Go ahead.
7 minutes, 30 seconds, you're still good. 7 minutes, 31, disqualified. It happens. It even happens all the way at district. Victoria, timing, okay. We just talked about the timing, disqualification, originality. No large amounts of quoted material. If you have some quoted material, that's okay as long as you have the reference in there, citing who it was. If you're talking about a Beatles song, make sure you say it was from the Beatles. No plagiarizing. Don't copy from the internet 10 minutes, 10 internet jokes. and think that you're going to win the humorous contest.
At what point would they determine if you judge?
Good question.
Because you don't have enough time to do your research. I mean, sometimes you know you've heard this before.
Right.
So at what point do the judges determine that that particular contestant is right?
It would be up to either a contestant or a judge to put in a protest, at which point the chief judge would review it and allow the contestant to talk through what the protest was. And at that point, the chief judge makes the final decision.
After all the speeches are done. Yeah. That's when a contestant or another judge will present
So you're
it.
delaying the
Yeah, oh, yeah.
one.
They're
and then you
delaying,
get that.
no, they're delaying the part at the end when we're counting ballots and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
okay.
So
That's when that'll
if there are any people that want it, so we tell the contestants in briefing, if you have a protest on something that you've heard, then you wait till all the speeches are done and then you'll come to us. So he's about to talk about it right now.
Protest should be in writing. Make sure you go into the chief judge, but also in writing, make sure that you just don't write it in your ballot and think that's good enough. It needs to be either a separate piece of paper or to go up to the chief judge or the contest chair. The chief judge is going to be the ultimate authority, therefore they must know before the results are read. If the results are read and you still have a protest, too late, we're done, sorry.
Do we know who the chief judge is, or are they
Yes.
secret too?
Nope, they will come out and they are the ones who say, the people have been briefed, everybody is eligible, the contest may now begin. They will be introduced and they will make at least that minimum. Sometimes they say a little bit more, but that's usually the minimum they will say. You are now ready to be judges!
Bring it on.
And we're ready for our break.
7 minutes now.